And it's Monday, coming to you live from Charlotte, North Carolina, right here on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network, as well as podcasting on most of your podcast platforms. So no matter what time zone you happen to be in, welcome to the show. I hope you had a great weekend. I hope you had a exceptionally great weekend, especially if you were doing any wagering. Okay. Hope you did very well in that category as well. So, anyway, thank you very much. Welcome to the show. We've got a lot to talk about today. We're going to be talking about primarily basketball because that is really the topic of discussion right now because of the NBA playoffs. Of course, there are hockey playoffs going on as well, but you don't really hear that much about them. I listed and I watched the various sports shows just as you do throughout the week, and there's very little mention of hockey. It's always NBA, so you can understand. And I really feel for you guys who are hockey mavens out there that love hockey and want to hear the latest you can on it, that you don't really get to see very much on it at all. So kind of you're one of those boutique, what they call a boutique sport as far as betting is concerned. So, of course, most of the listeners, most of the people that watch these shows, basketball, football primarily, of course, gets the biggest numbers. Baseball is starting to get a little more activity now. People are starting to learn that you can make some decent money betting baseball. So they're kind of taking that into consideration as well. So anyway, welcome to the show. I am Chris Pardo. And like I said, we're coming to you live from Charlotte, North Carolina, and very, very live as we can be, as they say. So it's Monday. We're starting off another new week. But of course, as usual, we're going to be talking about two games on tap for the NBA for today to give you an idea as to the line movement on those games and as to how the pros are going on them. We've got Philadelphia against Atlanta, and we're going to look at the Jazz against the Clippers. We also have two baseball games to talk about: the Reds and the Brewers, and the Angels and the Oakland A's. Now, as far as the baseball is concerned, we're not going to go into great detail about it as we normally do because of time constrictions. We're going to spend most of our time talking about the two NBA playoff games, but we will definitely let you know what two games are on tap as far as the pros are concerned, kind of give you some thought and idea as to why they've made those selections as well. But in the meantime, as usual, and of course, we're going to do something about hockey too. That's another thing I just happen to remember. We're going to take a look and talk about the upcoming game between the Canadiens and the Las Vegas Kings. So we're going to take Las Vegas Knights, I'm sorry, and kind of give you some thoughts and ideas on that as well. And so in the meantime, it's Monday. Things are kind of jumpy today. I don't know what it is about today. It's kind of, I don't know. It's hard to say. Anyway, maybe a rough weekend. I was traveled to Denver, Colorado to watch my grandson play baseball. And when you sit for an entire weekend watching 6 baseball games, one after another, in 99 to 100 degree heat, it kind of wears you down a little bit. So anyway, we had a great time. His team won the championship. He had a very, very good weekend. So, I feel pretty good today about that. But in the meantime, let's get back to business. Let's get back to talking about what happened yesterday as far as sports were concerned and betting in them sports as well. To begin with, in the National Hockey League, the Islanders beat the Lightning 2-1. They were plus 165 road underdogs in that game one. They're in the semifinal series, and the total puck number stayed under 5.5. The favorites still lead overall the playoffs, but only 34-30. The home team's lead dropped down to 34-33 overall, and the unders moved up a little bit to 35-31 or 53%. And for you guys out there that have been betting hockey, you know what I'm talking about when we say that earlier in the season, during the regular season, the favorites were really knocking them dead as far as hockey is concerned. Once the playoffs began, those dogs started coming out of those doghouses, barking loud and clear and playing some havoc as far as you guys that if you're betting favorites, you really got blasted a few times this playoff era. So anyway, looking at the NBA, the Suns, 3.5 point favorites beat the Nuggets 125 to 118. That's a sweep. 4 games to none. Nuggets got swept. Like I said, I was in Denver. People very upset about that. 4-0. They thought they would at least come in and win one game of the second round. The over went over 22.5 points. And earlier, the Bucks as 2-point underdogs upset the Nets 107-96 to even their series at 2-2. That stayed under the 228 total as well. Now, overall, the favorites are 10-4 straight up. They're 8-5-1 against the spread so far in this round. They're 40-17 straight up and 36-20 against the spread overall, which is over 64%. The home teams still lead 10-4 straight up, but only 8-5 against the spread. And in this round, that's their number as far as totally over the entire series. It's 32-25 straight up, 30-26 against the spread, and that's at almost 54% overall. The unders lead 8-6 in this round, but the overs have a slight lead, 29-27 as far as the entire tournament is concerned. Meanwhile, in Major League Baseball, the favorites, they went 12-2 yesterday. The Giants and the Nationals closing as a pick'em. The only upsets were by the Mariners at a plus 198 against the Indians, and the Braves a plus 113 against the Marlins. The favorites got to 57.5% on the season so far. And the overs went 7-6-2. They increased their slim lead to 468 to 463. So that's probably one of the reasons why we didn't have any plays yesterday. Most of the favorites were probably the selections. The pros kind of stayed away from them. 12-2. That means 14 games played. 12 games were won by favorites, so you can understand why we didn't have any plays yesterday from the pros. But we do have 2 on tap for today, and we'll talk about them later on in the show as well. So that's the story as far as the major sports are concerned and as far as how the betting situations went yesterday. In the meantime, today, we're going to take our first break of the day. If you've listened to the show before, you know that we do take 3 breaks, and they're of 1-minute duration. And of course, we have 3 of them throughout the show. But anyway, we're going to take our first break, and when we do come back, we're going to take a look at those NBA playoffs. Philadelphia against Atlanta, the Jazz against the Clippers. We're going to take a look at them, and then we're also going to update you on the odds as far as winning the entire shebang is concerned. So let's get that break out of the way. And as usual, we will be back into the sports wagering zone in 1 minute. And welcome back. Welcome back to the Sports Wagering Zone. I'm Chris Pardo. Thank you very much for listening. Coming to you live from Charlotte, North Carolina on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network, as well as podcasting on most of your podcast platforms, such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Spreaker, Google Podcasts, or most of them, easy to get a hold of. We're also on Blackjack TV on the East Coast, and of course, we're also on milehighradio.com in the Colorado area as well. So anyway, we're going to talk about two games on tap for today as far as the NBA playoffs are concerned. But before we get started again, I just want to apologize. Things were a little rough this morning after, like I said, spending Saturday and Sunday in Denver, Colorado, watching my grandson play baseball and watching 3 games a day, okay, and you're out there at that 100-degree heat. It's sometimes you get to the point where you kind of hope that they lose one of the games so you can get home a little earlier. But I'm not complaining. I had a great time. It's great if you have any grandkids or kids, you know what I'm talking about. It's a great thing to watch, and it's I know we kind of sound like I'm complaining, but I'm really not. I would go through it once again, and I probably will be doing it in a couple of weeks from now as well. Anyway, I'm sorry to take your time on that, but I just want to apologize for the way things are kind of going this morning. It's Monday, been a long weekend, and it's been a tough weekend as far as weather's concerned. So anyway, let's get going. 7:30 p.m. tonight, Philadelphia 76ers, the Atlanta Hawks. This is game 4. It's the Eastern Conference semifinals, of course. The 76ers, they still lead the series 2-1. They split the first 2 games, if you remember, in Philadelphia. The Sixers posted a dominant 127-111 victory in that game 3. They easily covered. 2-point road favorites in that particular game. And in tonight's rematch, Philadelphia opened as a 2.5-point road favorite. That's the opening. In this particular situation, the professionals and the general public, they all seem to be lining up with Philadelphia, as we've seen a heavy dose of the bets and a lot of the money pushing that line up from 2.5 up to 3. Now, some of the shops, before we went on the air, we were checking the Vegas shops. Some of them have even gone up to 3.5, then bounced back to 3, then back to 3.5. So it's definitely on the move in that direction. Philadelphia matches several of the profitable playoff betting systems. For instance, like road favorites. They're an impressive 12-4 against the spread. That's 75%. 12-4 against the spread. Road favorites so far in this postseason. The short favorites, those are favorites that have 5 points or less, are at 66%. Now, playoff favorites with a line move in their favor of at least a 0.5 point, okay, like the 76ers going from 2.5 to 3, possibly even to 3.5, they're at 63% so far in the playoffs. Favorites are 64% so far in round 2. Now, we've also seen the pros coming in on the over on this game, as the total opened at 225, and it's been bet up to 225.5 before we went on the air. When the total is 220 or more, keep this in mind, the over is 61% in this postseason so far. The over is 2-1 in this series, and leading the series 2-1. The Sixers are now at a -700 favorite to move on to the next round. The Hawks are at +500 as dogs to come back and win the entire series. Now, one injury to keep in mind here. The 76ers are going to be without Danny Green the rest of the series because of that calf strain that he got. So in the first game, we talked about Philadelphia, Atlanta, in Atlanta, the pros and the general public. Everybody seems to agree the 76ers are the team to play. Meanwhile, at 10 o'clock, you got the Utah Jazz and the Los Angeles Clippers. Now, this is game 4. and it's that Western Conference and their semifinals as well. The Jazz leads this series 2-1. They dropped the first two games in Utah. The Clippers, after dropping those two games, the Clippers came back with a 132-106 win in game three. And in that game, they covered because they were just 5-point home favorites, had no problem covering in that game. Now, in tonight's big game, game four, Los Angeles opened as a 4-point home favorite. The public is leaning towards the Clippers after that big win. And the pros, they seem to be in agreement as well, because Los Angeles has moved from being a 4 to a 4.5-point favorite. And also, once again, some of the shops are at 5 as well. Now, essentially, all the liability has been on Los Angeles. Remember, short favorites, 5 points or less, with a line move in their direction, are at 67% against the spread in the playoffs. The home favorites, they're at 70% in round two. The favorites overall are 65% for the entire postseason. So the total opened at 223.5, hasn't budged in Vegas. The over is 2-1 so far in this series. Now, keep in mind, there are two key Jazz injuries to keep an eye on in this particular game. Donovan Mitchell left game three, looks like an ankle injury. He is expected to play, and Mike Conley remains questionable because of his hamstring injury. So, leading the series 2-1, the Jazz are still at a minus 190 as a favorite to punch the ticket into the next round. And the Clippers, they're at a plus 155 dog to win the entire series as well. So in this game, once again, Utah against Los Angeles, the pros and the general public seem to agree on the same team. The Los Angeles Clippers are the team to bet. As well as in the first game we talked about, between the 76ers and the Hawks, the pros and the general public are on the 76ers as well. So let's get that second break out of the way. When we come back, we're going to take a look at some updated odds for the NBA title, and we'll let you know how that's going. And of course, we'll talk about the two baseball games we have on tap for today as well. You got the Reds against the Brewers and the Angels against Oakland. So when we take our break, we come back, that's what we'll be talking about. In the meantime, to get a hold of us, it's not very difficult. All you have to do is send an email and send it to the Sports Wagering Zone at gmail.com. That's the Sports Wagering Zone at gmail.com. We'll be back into the Sports Wagering Zone right after this. And welcome back. Welcome back to the Sports Wagering Zone. I'm Chris Pardo, coming to you live on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network. We're here every day, Monday through Friday, 12 noon Eastern Time. So whatever time zone you're in, welcome to the show. Again, a little rough shot today. We're having some problems talking and going over things, but kind of get the general idea of what's going on, and I apologize for that, but hopefully tomorrow, after getting some good sleep today and tonight, I'll have a chance to come back strong tomorrow. Anyway, let's take a look at the updated odds on the NBA title game as far as we're concerned. And this is from BetMGM, by the way. The Nets are at plus 250. They're still on top. Then the Suns are at plus 375. The Jazz at plus 400. The Bucks plus 475. The 76ers at plus 600. Clippers at plus 750. And if you're looking for a way out long shot, the Hawks plus 10,000. Those are the odds from BetMGM as far as the NBA title is concerned. So we looked at those. We also went over to the situation as far as the games on tap for today. The two games, in both games, just so happens that the public, the general public, the bettors, along with the pros, are on the same two teams. Philadelphia against Atlanta. The pros and the public are on Philadelphia. Jazz and the Clippers. The pros are on the Clippers in that game as well. So we'll keep you up to date on that as it goes along. The line seems to be moving even further into the direction towards those two favorites as we speak. In baseball, like I said, we don't have time to go through all the detail like we normally do and like we just did as far as the basketball is concerned. So we're looking at two games, the Reds against the Brewers. And in that first game, we're looking at the Reds as being the team to bet. Vladimir Gutierrez is pitching for the Reds, and with the market consensus somewhere around in the plus 130, 140 area, the pros believe this is good value betting on the Reds to beat the Milwaukee Brewers. Of course, they're going to be the underdog in this race, and just the way the pros generally look at it, they're primarily contrarians, as we talked about in the past. So that's the story in the first game. The Reds against the Brewers. Pros are on the Reds in this game. In the other game, the Angels against the Athletics. The pros' recommendation is the favorite in this particular game, and that's the Athletics. Sean Manaeus and Dylan Bundy are currently the projected pitchers to start for this matchup between the A's and the Angels. And as far as the pros look at it, they seem to think that the Athletics would be a good bet, but make sure that you can get a better price range than the minus 150, 160 that it's at. You're going to have to lay some wood on this game if you're looking to bet on the A's. So the two games on tap for today, the Reds in the first game against the Brewers, and in the second game, the Angels and the Athletics. The pros are on the Athletics in that particular game. So that's the story as far as baseball is concerned. We had no plays yesterday. And as you see, of the 14 games yesterday, 12 of them were won by the favorites. That's probably one of the reasons why the pros did not have any plays for yesterday. But that's the story for today. Reds against the Brewers. The pros are on the Reds. Angels against Oakland. The pros are on Oakland. And that's with baseball. Now, we're going to take our third break. And when we come back, we are going to talk a little hockey. I don't know that much about hockey because I'm not a hockey maven, as they say. Although I did grow up in the New York metropolitan area, was a huge Rangers fan throughout the years. I still am to a certain degree. And of course, at one point in time, even had season tickets for the Rangers to watch them play. But as the years went on, I kind of drifted away, stayed more towards baseball, football, and college basketball and football as well. So try to concentrate more in that direction. And of course, as we say, hockey is more or less a boutique sport. Not as many people are involved in wagering on hockey as they are on the other sports. So, of course, as usual, we concentrate on those sports only. So we're going to talk about hockey, though, because coming up into the finals, big game coming up between the Montreal Canadiens and the Las Vegas Knights. Take a little look at that, and we'll tell you what the story is as far as that game is concerned. So let's take our final break. And like I said, when we do come back, we'll be talking some hockey. So we'll be back into the zone right after this. And welcome back. Welcome back to the Sports Wagering Zone. I'm Chris Pardo. We're coming to you live from Charlotte, North Carolina, right here on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network, as well as most of your major podcast platforms as well. Now, as I said earlier, not much into hockey, but there's an article from Andy McNeil. He's the big maven over at the Vegas Sports Information Network, and he made some real comments about the game coming up. So I'm just going to read off to you what he had said. These are all his ideas and thoughts on what's going to be happening. So I thought maybe this would be of some help to you if you're interested in betting on hockey. If you're a hockey fan, you might want to listen to what we have to say. And, maybe you have nothing else you want to bet on today. You might want to throw something on a hockey game. There's some information here for you as well. Now, BetMGM and DraftKings, they currently list the Golden Knights as a minus 500 series favorite, with the Canadiens coming back on the other side as a plus 375 dog. So that equates to about an 80-20 split. If the Canadiens win the series, it would probably be the biggest upset in more than a decade of playoff hockey, going back to 2010 when the Canadiens upset the Caps, who were a minus 645 as a series favorite. So he's saying that the Montreal team certainly has the ingredients to pull off that upset and to add to the franchise's lore that has been going on. I mean, they've been winning forever and ever, it seems like, 24 Stanley Cups throughout the time. It looks, however, as if the Canadiens will be without the services of their best defenseman, Jeff Petrie, at least for game one. Now, with this news, it's all that more difficult to envision that the Canadiens will be avoiding defeat on Monday, which is today, especially after the Golden Knights destroyed the Colorado Avalanche in the previous round as if they were the Winnipeg Jets. Now, BetMGM lists Vegas as a minus 280 moneyline favorite in game one. And he says he would be enticed to take the Canadiens at plus 220. But this isn't a great spot for it. He says, I actually expect the odds will continue to trend in favor of the home team. Now, that's not because I don't think the Canadiens offer value. He says, I believe they do. The Golden Knights shouldn't be any more than a minus 200 favorite, according to him. But I don't necessarily think Every other bettor feels that way, and therefore he's in no rush to bet on the Canadians. So anyone who wishes to back the underdog in this situation, like he does, might be better off waiting until closer to the puck drop. If I'm going to lose, he says, if I'm going to lose a bet, I better have gotten the best of the odds. Bettors can currently find a plus 230 at FanDuel and William Hill in New Jersey. But he says, I would wait for a bigger price before actually making the bet unless Petrie is declared available. Okay. Now, the same goes for the series, in which I estimate the Golden Knights will move into the Stanley Cup Finals approximately 76% of the time. The Canadians should win the series more than the current odds seem to imply. Now, however, be the first game they manage to steal. Will this be the first game, he says? Maybe, maybe not. But he does believe there'll be a better time to get involved, likely after they drop that first game in the series. Sure, plus 375 is a pretty good price, and bettors can find plus 400 at William Hill. But there are 35 different scenarios in a best of 7, and 15 involve a team that loses game 1 and they come back to win the series. According to him, he says, I estimate the Canadians' chances of winning the series would be about 16% if they were to lose today, which works out to the odds of plus 525 on the money line. Now, once again, it might be better to wait for a different point in the series to jump in at much bigger odds. The Golden Knights are a juggernaut, and they might even win the Stanley Cup, but they'll have to get past Carey Price and a roster that's full of veteran skaters who know exactly what it does take to win the playoffs in this situation. So once again, just want to let you know that's an article that was come out in Vegas Sports Information Network. Andy McNeil, I kind of follow Andy. He's the guru as far as hockey's concerned. He kind of knows what he's talking about. He's pretty good in that direction. So I just want to let you know about it so that if you are a hockey fan out there, I know there are some of you out there that are, no doubt about it, perhaps this information will kind of help you in making your determination as to who and how to bet on, okay? Anyway, that's the story for hockey. As far as basketball goes tonight, 2 games. The pros have 2 games on the agenda. The 76ers against the Atlanta Hawks. And in that game, not only the pros, but the general public. Everybody seems to agree 76ers are the bet to take. They're at 3.5, could possibly go to 4. So again, in this game, if you're looking to bet on the Sixers, I would say get in as soon as you can because that line will probably move even further. Now, if you kind of think that maybe the Hawks have a shot here, sit back and wait. Wait just before game time. This way you'll get the best possible number as well, especially if you're dealing with more than one sportsbook, which we totally agree on. You have to deal with a minimum of 3. This way you're getting the best line possible. Nothing worse than finding out that one of the sports books in your area had a better line, and if you had bet with them, you would have been a winner. In the other game, the Utah Jazz against the Los Angeles Clippers, same story here. The pros and the general public, they seem to think the Clippers are the team to bet on. They're in the -4 to 4.5 category. May even move up to 5. So if you're looking to bet on the Clippers, I would get in as soon as you can. If you're looking to bet on the Jazz, sit back and relax, wait for game time, and then make your bet because, again, the way the line seems to be moving in those 2 games, you might, if you're looking to bet the dog in either one of them, I would sit back and wait before game time before I made my bet. However, if I'm on the favorite, I want to get in there soon because that line is definitely going to move in the other direction away from you. Meanwhile, in baseball, the two games we looked at, the Reds and the Brewers, the pros are on the Red Sox, on the Reds. The Angels and Oakland A's, the pros in that game are on the Oakland Athletics. So that's the story for today. Basketball, we gave you two games in baseball. Hopefully, you'll do very well if whichever way you're betting on those games. Hopefully, we gave you some help in helping you go in which direction you were thinking of going. So that's the story for today. I want to thank you very much for listening. I hope you have a very pleasant Monday. It's the beginning of the week. I know, got to get back to work. You're coming back off of a nice weekend vacation or whatever. Now it's time back to work. Looking at the scores, looking at what's going on, possibly wanting to make a bet or two. If you're going to do that, I wish you the best of luck. We want you to win. That's the whole idea of the show. We want to make you a better handicapper. So until tomorrow, once again at 12 noon, I'm Chris Pardo. Have a very pleasant Monday. And if you're going to be betting, I hope you have a profitable Monday as well. So until tomorrow at 12 noon, right here on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network and on most of your podcast platforms, I'm Chris Pardo. Thank you very much for listening and have a great and profitable day. Goodbye, everybody.